20 hours a week. At one point in time, that was my commute. I was spending 20 hours a week, 20 hours of my life alone in a car, commuting to at what at the time was an unfulfilling job. And I never felt more helpless and hopeless and defeated. And ultimately, like there was no way out. Today, my commute is literally opening my laptop. You're busy working and stuff, so laptop lifestyle, yo. I am working remotely right now. I'm actually at my parents' house with my kids. Give you a quick view. I now have the freedom to plan my work around my lifestyle and not my lifestyle around my work. If you also have a horrendous commute or are just finally feeling the pressure of showing up every single day at a job that just doesn't inspire you and doesn't motivate you, then you are in the right place. Today, I'm sharing exactly how I achieved work freedom and flexibility by starting my own business. After watching this video, you will have a clear action plan on exactly what steps that you need to take to make it a reality for you too. Before we go ahead and dive in for the very best advice on creating both a business and lifestyle filled with freedom and flexibility, go ahead and hit that button and tap subscribe to be notified the next time a new video airs. So I am the very last person that you would ever expect would have become an entrepreneur. My degree is a super expensive piece of paper that says I can draw well. So I had a fine arts degree. I could draw and paint. That's what I went to college for. Now, after graduating, the only job that I could really get was waiting tables. And this really annoyed and upset my father. So instead of, watching me wait tables every day, he offered me a graphic design position for my family's electronics distribution business. 15 years later, I was the third generation to be running it. Never anything I ever anticipated. And truth was, I absolutely loved it. I love what I did, and I really enjoyed the people I worked with and the type of work that we were doing. But ultimately, deep down, I knew that I didn't feel fulfilled. By the time I was leaving the company, I was a single mom, and the most I ever got to see my son was through my home security camera systems. After experiencing a very traumatic life event, one of which I shared in my TEDx talk.
So for me, adding up the hours of my commute wasn't enough to be able to inspire change for me. Instead, it was the trauma of being the one to discover that somebody I loved dearly had chosen to take his life by suicide.
I realized that life was way too precious for me to be living under somebody else's rules. So I quit my six-figure, 15-year career and left with the hope of being able to achieve freedom and flexibility in my work as well as my own choices. I used my emergency savings, so the 6-month emergency savings that they recommend that you have. I called it an emergency of my soul. So I used those savings to start my own business, and the rest is history. It's now been only 3 years since I made that decision, and I am so grateful that I did. I very recently had a baby, and I will never have to watch any of her firsts through those home security cameras like I did for my son. I will be here for each and every moment, and that just fills my heart with so much joy. So today I'm running down exactly what I did to make this free and flexible lifestyle a reality. The very first thing that I had done, which I didn't realize it back then, but I do now in hindsight, is I was really honest with myself that I was unhappy. So while I was sitting in the car for those 20-hour commutes, I knew I was miserable. I knew something had to change. I wasn't in denial, or at least in the way that I thought I was. I was in denial that I needed to be doing different work than the work that I was currently doing. But I definitely was not in denial that a 20-hour commute is normal. Right? So I had actually started at that time to go to therapy to try to unpack why I was unhappy. And this I think is so important because many of us, we kind of dismiss our mental health And in being honest with yourself that something isn't right and you're not feeling in alignment, because really you should be feeling, positive emotions and feelings and not negative ones. And what I found at that time was it was more and more negative each and every day. I was getting short with people. I was, really kind of depressed. I didn't want to wake up in the morning, very low energy vibes. And this was something that I was able to recognize. And I was honest with myself about it. And I went to seek help for it. So that was the very first step, was just being honest that, my life wasn't what I wanted it to be. Now, the next one was a little bit more difficult, and that was that I made the decision to change it. And for me, and I talk about this extensively in my TED Talk, which I will link in the description here for you to check out. But that decision didn't come easily to me. So that decision was made in the wake of a very major traumatic life event. I describe this as being a pivotal life moment. Pivotal life moments are the moments that force you to change. So, great example, for me, it was a suicide loss. The pandemic was a, quintessential pivotal life moment that a lot of people lost jobs or lost a loved one, that it forces you to change because your life after the event is always going to be different than it was before. There is no going back. So you're kind of forced to move forward. So I didn't make that decision to change until after that. But the beautiful thing looking back now is you can make that decision now. There was nothing stopping me from making that decision then, with the exception of my own fear, my own fear of failing or just even being comfortable. I was comfortable in my day-to-day routine. And at that point, I wasn't ready to make that change because it was going to be uncomfortable. Having to change all of my processes and procedures and just like my day-to-day life, it's a lot. So it wasn't until I finally made the decision to make that change that things really started to fall into place. From there, after I made that decision, the other part that was so important was to visualize the life that I wanted to have. Now, one of the things I had done quite a while ago, without even knowing it, is I was always very big on vision boards, as well as doing an exercise that I do every 5 years, where I basically imagine myself being at an airport 5 years from now. And I run into somebody that I know and they ask me, hey, so what have you been up to? And I wrote out exactly what I wished I would be up to, or envisioned what that would look like. And it's interesting because this, the pivotal life moment, the traumatic event that happened to me that caused me to finally make that decision to make a change, I had been visualizing this ideal life for a few years before that. So I had actually gotten divorced a few years before, which is why I was a single mom with a young baby. And it was, during that phase that I started to say, okay, well, I'm starting over again. So what kind of life do I want? And I divided a sheet of paper into 4 sections, one section for each value of mine that is important to me. And I wrote what my lifestyle looked like for that value. And the most amazing part of this is every single thing that I wrote down on that piece of paper came true within the 5 years, like almost to the day. It's amazing. But if I didn't go through the process of visualizing what I wanted my life to be and writing it down and really kind of thinking about it on a regular basis, I would not be where I am today. So it's a super important step. You got to start, imagining what it is you want and getting very crystal clear on the specifics of how you want to feel when you have what you want. It's not so much the physical things like, owning a home or getting a, Maserati, whatever that might look like. It's more, how will having that make you feel? And being able to imagine yourself in that place at that time. So I'd love to take a really quick breather here to ask, so how does my experience and sharing my story resonate for you? If it does, definitely be sure to like this video, drop me a heart in the comments. I would love to connect with you. So the very next thing that I did, which is one that I think a lot of folks don't, and I don't understand why, is I invested in support. So like I mentioned before, I knew that I was unhappy. I, admitted that to myself, and I went to see a therapist. So investing in a therapist is investing in yourself. So I was not afraid to spend the money for that. But it went a step or two further. So when I made the decision to start my own business, now mind you, I had been a third generation entrepreneur for over 15 years. I learned everything about business from my father, who learned it from his father, who learned it from his father. So I was no stranger to business, but I still went out and I invested in a business coach. Because truth was, my experience to that time was in wholesale distribution and electronics and manufacturing and tech. And the businesses that I was looking to getting into, which was more in the coaching, consulting, speaking, in those areas, I had absolutely no idea how those businesses worked. How you generate clients or how you structure the business itself. So instead of, basically, I didn't have any time to waste because I was running on my 6-month emergency fund to start my business. So with that in mind, and knowing that I literally had everything on the line being a single mom, I invested in the coaching and support that I needed to learn the business. So I was able to get results much, much faster and ultimately have the help and support that I needed to kind of muscle through and figure out exactly, how I wanted to spend my time, how I wanted to structure the business, what I wanted my new work and lifestyle to look like, right? And from there, it made taking action moving forward much, much easier. So then from there, part of the process when I was working with the coaches and just kind of, working on myself was getting really clear on what I wanted my impact on the world to be. So if I wasn't going to be working in this career, if I wasn't going to be the third generation running my family's business anymore, what did I want Corey to be? What impact did I want to leave on this world? And how did I want to help and serve people? Because deep down, I knew that by helping and serving others, that's how I was going to be able to be successful. That was a value that was important to me. And so I took a lot of time on gaining clarity on specifically what I wanted that to look like. And ultimately, I landed for me, my why, the reason I made all these difficult decisions and I started my own business is because I want to inspire other people as well as my children to live life to their highest purpose. Right. That was so, so important. I knew for myself when I was working that career and I was feeling unfulfilled, the reason why is because I felt like I had more to offer. And this was super important for me. And having that level of clarity allowed me to, build a business and a lifestyle that supported that, and ultimately achieves that day in and day out every single day. And then last but not least, the other thing that I did, which a lot of folks shy away from, is I was not afraid to put myself out there. So in terms of social media, I started the accounts for my business probably a week before that traumatic event happened. And I used my platforms to share what I was going through. Which was very raw, very vulnerable. It really didn't have a whole lot to talk about my business, but instead it gave me a platform to talk about, what I wanted in life and what I wanted for other people. And I wasn't afraid to put myself out there, right? Because I knew that by putting myself out there, that allows other people to be able to learn from me and for me to be able to learn from them and to be able to create authentic connections and community. And when we have that, it makes it that much easier to survive even our deepest, darkest days. So I knew I had to be able to do that. So I put myself out there both, personally, while I was going through the process of this transition and creating this new business. And then after, when I finally was clear on exactly what I wanted to do. So for me, I knew I wanted to coach. I wasn't sure at that point specifically who I wanted to coach, but I knew I wanted that. I had to put myself out there and actually make it known that I was a coach. So for me, and I have a few videos you can check out over here. I'll link to them below on how to network But that's how I essentially put myself out there and made it known that I was a coach. So I went to a lot of networking events. I met people for coffee. I made it a point to go out and meet people that I didn't know in efforts to build my network to then grow my brand new business. And that allowed me to build ultimately what supports me and my family today with the freedom and the flexibility that I have always wanted, that I had envisioned from day one. And now I'm able to do it and record this video to share with you while having a break this morning to watch my daughter roll over for the first time. It's pretty amazing when I look back on it now, and it worked for me and it'll work for you too. If you right now watching this are currently where I was all those years ago, that you're unhappy and unfulfilled, working in a career that doesn't light you up, that doesn't allow you the flexibility or the freedom that you truly crave, let's talk about it. I invite you to book a call with me and my team to discuss whether or not the Validate Your Biz Blueprint can help you achieve your goals by helping you start your very own business. Apply to book your call today by clicking the link below in the description. Be sure to check out these videos next for even more ways that you could achieve freedom and flexibility in both your work and lifestyle. And if you like this video, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. I'll see you next time.